Joe Biden has completed 100 days in office. What has he accomplished, and has he delivered on his promises? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. And hey, if you aren't subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's a huge help to the show. So today, I want to congratulate President Joe Biden for making it through his first 100 days. It was touch and go at times. But he's okay, folks. The first 100 days is a big milestone for any president in the modern era. It has been ever since Franklin D. Roosevelt coined the term in one of his famous fireside chat radio addresses. Roosevelt, also known as FDR, did an insane amount of presidential things during his first 100 days as president in 1933. There's even an entire book about it, which makes sense since he became president in the middle of the Great Depression. FDR did even more insane presidential things during his next 12 years as president. There's even an entire movie about it, though it's less historically accurate. Whether or not FDR's policies help lift America out of the Great Depression is still a huge debate among economists and historians. And yet now, every new president feels like they have to compete with FDR's ghost. It's like going to the same private high school as your grandfather, who was at the top of his class, the captain of the football team, and prom king. He was perfect, if you just overlook how he treated the Japanese students. So when it comes to President Biden's first 100 days, Biden had some pretty high expectations to fulfill. And the highest of those expectations came from Biden himself. He wholeheartedly embraced the FDR legacy. He even almost put himself in a wheelchair. And he made a lot of promises during his campaign of things he would accomplish in his first 100 days. And I mean a lot of promises. Biden made so many promises to America, it felt like he was trying to score more than just political points. The Associated Press Biden Promise Tracker counts 61 promises to be exact. That's a lot more promises than we have time to cover in detail today. So let's just look at some highlights. First, let's look at Biden's successes, the promises he kept. And then we'll look at the promises he hasn't kept, right after the break. Welcome back. In President Biden's first 100 days, a lot of his focus has been on addressing COVID-19. And most of his promises in this area have been met. For example, as promised, Biden kept the U.S. in the World Health Organization, increased access to COVID-19 testing, issued a mask mandate on federal property, and signed the American Rescue Plan into law after it passed through Congress. Biden also extended President Trump's nationwide restrictions on evictions and foreclosures, and extended Trump's pause on federal student loan payments. Biden also extended Trump's mandatory minimum drug sentencing. But the media doesn't tout that as much. When it comes to vaccines, Biden's goal was initially to have 100 million doses administered by day 100. The United States did that by day 59. So Biden upped the goal to 200 million doses. He announced the U.S. had reached that milestone on day 92. So kudos to Biden and the men who gave him the idea for his Shots for Everybody plan, LMFAO and Littlejohn. Of course, Biden had a head start on those shots. By the time Biden took office, the vaccines had already been developed. About 16 million doses had already been administered, and the U.S. was already on target to do over 100 million in less than 100 days. So that accomplishment probably would have happened under any president. Even President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho from Idiocracy, although his vaccines would have had more electrolytes. Biden's contribution was mainly to push for more vaccine doses, opening up more vaccination sites, and allocating funding to the American Rescue Plan. Biden also wanted to safely reopen a majority of K-8 schools by his 100th day. Burbio, a school tracking site, reports that as of April 18th, 62% of schools offered in-person learning every day, meeting the Biden administration's definition of open. Although, Offering in-person learning every day doesn't mean that all of the students are back in their classrooms full-time. According to a U.S. Department of Education survey, only 29% of 8th graders and 39% of 4th graders were attending school full-time in February, which is alarming, since kids not learning anything in school is how you end up with President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho. So the majority, but still less than 2/3 of schools are open, and among those that are open, most of their students are not coming in every day. So, promise technically kept. Kind of like when your mom promises you a puppy for Christmas, then you get a dog that's been taxidermied. Promise technically kept. Thanks, Mom. The first 100 days can tell you a lot about the president's approach and priorities as an agenda is established. It gives you a sense of the tone or the climate of that administration. And this administration's climate is the climate. Biden rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement, rescinded the Keystone XL oil pipeline permit, stopped drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and imposed a moratorium on new oil and gas leases on federal lands and waters. So far, Biden is greener than Peter Pan voting for Jill Stein on St. Patrick's Day in a rainforest. Biden's biggest green item in terms of both climate and dollar signs is the $2 trillion American Jobs Plan. It includes investments in green energy, electric vehicles, and climate-resilient infrastructure, among many other things. It was only recently proposed to Congress, so it has a long journey ahead of it. We did a whole episode on it. I guess the thing that's most green about Biden is all the cash he's spending. Regarding foreign policy, Biden has also announced that he will withdraw troops from Afghanistan by September 11th. He imposed sanctions on Russia for interference in the 2020 election and the SolarWinds cyber attack. He also surprised a lot of people by maintaining Trump's trade tariffs on China. Biden has begun talks to rejoin the nuclear deal with Iran, but Iran wants him to end the sanctions before they'll talk, while Biden wants Iran to end uranium enrichment before he'll end the sanctions, so no one is actually talking yet. Somewhere, Hunter Biden is probably thinking, if you want to talk to my dad, it could be arranged. In the domestic sphere, Biden reversed the transgender military ban. He created a group focused on promoting union organizing. In terms of healthcare, Biden reopened the Federal Affordable Care Act exchange, opened a special enrollment window, and increased subsidies for healthcare coverage. He also helped millions of Americans suffering from insomnia with his hour-long address to Congress. Biden has also checked off some items on the social justice agenda. He signed 4 executive actions addressing systemic racism, and as promised, he created a cabinet that looks like America, the most diverse cabinet in U.S. history, 46% female, 50% non-white. Although if the cabinet really looked like America, the members would need to look like this, inclusive and terrifying. But there are a lot of promises Biden hasn't kept, and I'll get to those after the break. Welcome back. It's hard for any president to keep all his promises. Immigration has been a particularly rocky area, as more and more migrants come to the border. Some even wearing t-shirts asking Biden for help. I've tried a similar tactic, with my t-shirt asking Biden to bring back Pirates of Dark Water. So far, it hasn't worked. The Biden administration created a task force to reunite families separated at the border. But in the first 100 days, the task force didn't actually unite any families. What would the ghost of FDR think? Oh, right, he probably doesn't care. But good news, this week, the task force is going to kick off by reuniting a grand total of 4 families. Did I say a grand total? I meant to say crushingly underwhelming total. And other immigration promises aren't going so well either. He tasked Vice President Kamala Harris with holding a meeting with regional leaders to address migration causes. It hasn't happened yet. Somewhere, Hunter Biden is probably thinking, if you want to talk to Kamala, I can make that happen too. When it comes to the border wall, Biden ran on a promise to stop construction. He could have achieved that by literally doing nothing. But instead, he may resume border wall construction to fill in some of those gaps. Other Biden promises encountered court challenges, like his goal to reinstate DACA or to freeze deportations for 100 days. His policing and gun control promises haven't gone particularly well either. The Biden administration outright abandoned a plan to create a police oversight board, choosing instead to support the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act in Congress, which passed the House in early March, and promises to direct the Attorney General and the FBI to issue reports regarding gun laws and background checks, respectively, have not been met. Biden also promised to send a gun control bill to Congress in his first 100 days, which he has not done, which is smart. By not sending it to Congress, Biden's gun control bill is one of the only things in America not in danger of being shot down. However, Biden did sign 6 gun-related executive actions on April 8th, relating to self-assembled ghost guns, community violence intervention, and red flag models that would temporarily stop people deemed unsafe from getting guns. And his budget includes money for a voluntary gun buyback program. A voluntary gun buyback program in America. Yeah, I don't think that's going to get very far. The only people selling their guns are doing it so they can afford even bigger guns. Overall, the Associated Press Promise Tracker considers 26 of Biden's 61 promises to have been kept, with another 32 partially met. Biden has signed 11 bills into law, which is comparatively few. But really, that's partially Congress's fault. He has issued 42 executive orders, which is a lot. And he has posted 592 tweets, which is a record. And it's actually more than Trump's 489 in the same period. And even more tweets posted than in all 12 years of FDR's presidency. So that's at least one thing Biden has over him. So what do people think of all this? Have Biden's first 100 days been a success? More after the final commercial break. Welcome back. Have Biden's first 100 days been a success? Well, as usual, it depends on who you ask. A political poll gives Biden a 60% overall approval rating. An ABC News/Washington Post poll says it's 52%. And the other polls are generally somewhere in between. Basically, somewhere in the mid-50s. A tepid, bland response to Joe Biden? No. Biden's current approval rating is higher than Trump's 42% at 100 days. But it's lower than every other president since Truman, except for Gerald Ford. Notably, Ford also tripped on the steps of Air Force One. I wonder if there's a correlation here. Besides the fact that we should stop electing presidents who are so old they can't walk upstairs. As might be expected, the approval numbers broken down are extremely partisan. So are the reactions of politicians. Democrats, like House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, praised Biden for his unifying message of resilience, resolve, and hope. At the same time, she called his address to Congress an ambitious, transformative vision. Can a president be both unifying and transformative in the current political climate? I'm not sure. He's no sexy hamburglar, because that was a transformation that unified the nation, mostly in people asking, why? Meanwhile, Republicans like Senator Tim Scott criticized Biden for even more taxing, even more spending, to put Washington even more in the middle of your life, from the cradle to college. He also said the beauty of the American dream is that families get to define it for themselves. We should be expanding options and opportunities for all families, not throwing money at certain issues because Democrats think they know best. He's not alone. A Washington Examiner opinion article accused Biden of trying to transform the nation radically. Personally, the only thing I want to see transformed radically are the Ninja Turtles. Speaking of turtles, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, he said, though Joe Biden ran as a unifying figure, the record of his first 100 days is one of partisan ideological left-wing governance. A Washington Times opinion article argued that Mr. Biden knows his agenda is so radical, so extreme, that he cannot hope to pass it and keep it intact without first fundamentally changing the rules of the political game. When I think of something so radical and extreme it changes the game, I'm not thinking of Joe Biden. I'm thinking of taco-flavored, Doritos-flavored tacos. Meanwhile, an Associated Press article said Biden's agenda has been more activist than expected, unabashedly liberal. Wait, I see it. A politician can be both unifying and transformative. President Biden has successfully unified Democrats and Republicans because both groups believe Biden is a radical liberal who wants to transform America. So what do you think about Biden's first 100 days? Leave your thoughts below in the comments. And don't forget, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. So please drop by our Patreon page and give $1 or more per episode so we can keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.